welcome to the next installment of Journey Through John as we take bite-sized chunks of scripture and have a brief discussion and then a challenge to wrap everything up. Today we're starting chapter 12 of John, and we'll be looking actually at the after effect of some of what Jesus did as we see in chapter 11. Remember, in chapter 11, he raised Lazarus from the dead, and that caused all sorts of uproar. And we see that that continues to be a pretty big event, not just because someone came back from the dead, but because it kind of set some other things in motion. We started actually talking about that last time when the Pharisees are now looking for a new way to get rid of Jesus and to kill him, to get him out of the way. But there are other things too, and so today we're going to be diving into verse 1 through verse 8 to kind of get the ball rolling. Having said that, let's go ahead and jump right in. So John chapter 12 verses 1 through 8 says this. So 6 days before the Passover, and that's a big deal, keep that in mind, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary, his other sister, remember Martha and Mary are her sisters, Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, he who was about to betray him, meaning Jesus, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what he was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me." Now, just a couple things to point out here, and we'll get to something we can apply for the day. But just to keep in mind that Passover is actually, if you remember the Last Supper, that was a Passover meal. And so the time of Jesus' departure, or the time of his crucifixion, is actually at hand. It's coming very soon. It's within that week that we see things starting to develop. He's just raised Lazarus from the dead. Once again, it's almost like a foreshadowing what we would see of Jesus. And so we see Mary here. She's just witnessed not just that he's the Messiah and what she believed in that limited view. Remember that thread we see through John? And even she said before Lazarus was raised from the dead, that if you had just been here, Jesus, he would have been able to make it, so to speak. And all of a sudden now, beyond that, she's seen Jesus raise her brother from the dead. And so she's starting to get the depth and the magnitude of all that he is. And I can almost imagine her just not having words, not knowing what to do. And so she probably took the most expensive thing that she had, because this was very expensive in their time. And she just took the most precious thing that she had, and she just served him. And that's it. She just served him. We see this, and then all of a sudden we see Judas, and Judas is there, and he's saying, "Well, we could have done so much more with this. It would have been so much more effective if we had just sold this. We could have fed so many other people." And he kind of feigns this care for the poor, because the reality is that he's helping himself to the money bag. And so while he's using this line that it could be better for our bottom line, we could help more people, we see that, but then we look back at Mary again, and she's just loving Jesus. And I think if Judas had been in the right heart in this matter, you need a balance between someone who is very just loving and someone who is the business side of things. However, he was so corrupt in this way that he was actually just trying to find a way to get some more money in his pocket. And so he's actually pretty frustrated with Mary here. And so when I think about this and I read this, I think we see this interesting dichotomy of what I do believe we see happening in the church in general. We have people who genuinely love Jesus, and they want to serve him, and they are just all in, and they're willing to give everything that they have, the best things that they have, the first fruits, if you will. And then, of course, there are people that will come in and they'll just kind of sit in and take in the service and on a Sunday, or maybe just watch the video now since we're under a pandemic still. And they take it in, but they don't really do anything different with it. And when there's an opportunity to do some kingdom work, sometimes we'll justify or come up with a reason why we shouldn't do it, or why it's not really that great of an idea. And so it causes me to sit back and think, and as I said, this is not a deep Bible study. This is just me as I've read this and kind of made a few notes and wanting to talk it over with you. Hopefully it's a resource to jump into your word every day. But as I read this, it kind of caused me to wonder, because I have my struggles too. And I wonder, what things am I trying to justify? What type of things am I saying? Maybe God's saying, I want you to do X, Y, Z. I want you to, and you fill in the blank, whatever that is. And I say, well, God, that doesn't make much sense. And the reality is either I'm more motivated by fear, I'm more motivated by pride, maybe I'm more motivated by greed, whatever have you. There are numerous things that could be your motivation. But we justify not doing what God has called us to do, or justifying not being extravagantly in love with Jesus. Does that make sense? Mary is just extravagant. It was reckless, if you will, for her to just dump this expensive ointment on Jesus' feet. But she loved him so much that it made sense to her, and that was the thing to do. And for Jesus, he adored it. How often do we justify not being that extravagant in our love with God? Something to think about. That's just the challenge for you. It's something that challenged me. But in this, I also hope that you're encouraged that he is more than welcome when we do come to him to receive us. So I hope that challenged you. Hope it encourages you. And I hope to see you again as we continue our journey through John.